And we have already, I see Tony Kushner with us. Oskar asked him to join us, and two more people are there. Oskar, here he is. And I think we will have Shaina Taub. So Oskar, welcome. Maybe you lead the session. First of all, really thank you for making this happen.
It is a complete honor to be here. I'm going to be joined soon by some of my compatriots as they show up from the Public Theater. Maybe we should start. Right? I'll introduce myself and then hand to you. I'm Oskar Eustis. I'm Artistic Director of the Public Theater in New York. We're perhaps best known for doing free Shakespeare in the Park every summer since 1954, something that's done all over the world, and more recently producing Hamilton. But for 60 years, the core of the Public Theater has been to be a theater for the people and a theater that tries to make sure that the culture belongs to everybody, that it is a democratic theater at its very core. And I'm delighted to be joined by some of the artists who do the work that make up that theater. And Jessica and Erik, perhaps you could take it from here.
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Jessica Blank.
And I'm Erik Jensen. We're married, so sometimes we interrupt each other.
It's true. We're documentary theater makers, among other things. And right now we have a play running in New York that was commissioned by the public and which Oskar has been involved in the life of since the very beginning, based on interviews that we did with surviving family members of coal miners who were killed in the 2010 Upper Big Branch mine disaster in West Virginia. In our documentary theater work, we tend to go and talk to folks who have lived through really difficult stuff often, and who our audiences might think they have nothing in common with. And we translate the interviews that we do with folks into theatrical structure that makes audiences empathize and feel things and feel commonalities that they might never think they would feel. We believe that's one of the incredibly powerful things about theater, is that it asks us to do that, and that when it's structured correctly, does it automatically. So we try to use that power to help people understand the lived experiences of real people in a deeper emotional way.
Other plays that we've done, our first play that we did together was The Exonerated, which was based on interviews with exonerated death row inmates. And then a play called Aftermath, which was based on interviews that we conducted with Iraqi refugees living in Jordan.
And then The Line, which we did for the public based on interviews with frontline medical responders in New York City in May of 2020. So just recently in New York, many of the family members of the miners who were lost in the UBB mine disaster just came to see the play. And it's pretty difficult to put into words the alchemical nature of the encounter between these real folks and the play, and also the audiences watching the play, to see themselves, for them to see themselves be seen by the audiences. They all reported back to us was really transformative, especially for a group of people that feel like they've been largely forgotten.
And one of the things that I will say about that specific performance, it was one of the places where, on the one hand, the theater completely fulfilled itself. It was an extraordinary night of theater. But on the other hand, it went beyond being a piece of theater, because this was a testimony it actually became a memorial service. And it was a memorial service that was shared by the audience and by the actors on stage. And I think it brought out something that the theater can do like no other form that I know, which is bring people together to understand the commonality of their grief or of their joy and experience that as it's an extraordinary work. We've been joined by another close friend, comrade, stalwart of the Public Theater, Tony Kushner, and Natalia. Such a pleasure to see you. Natalia of the Belarus Free Theatre, who is one of the great theater activists in the world today, doing just extraordinary work. And maybe if I could start, Natalia, would you, you have talked to me about your understanding of how your situation or the situation in your country, Belarus, and the Ukraine and Russia are tied together and need to be looked at as a whole in order to be understood. And if you could say a little bit about both BFT and about your point of view on that, I would be very grateful.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to be here tonight, but daytime for New York. But of course, it's the reason why we're here today. It's absolute complete disaster, because we, as artists, we people, if I talk about Belarus Free Theatre, who works underground for the last 17 years under dictatorship, and every single member of the company went through harassments. And the last time the major arrest against them happened in 2020, in 2021, when our managing directors been kept in jail in a cell for 12 meters with 45 other women in cell, with no water, with no toilet. There was no war. There was no water for them. And it was necessary for them to circulate and try to imagine that there is air by removing their clothes from them. And it's just those inhuman conditions in which theater makers are trying to create art. And that's happening for the last 17 years, for all years of our existence. When we only do the theater, when we only share with our audience what is happening in today's life, what is happening around us, that particular moment, artists get arrested. Because for authorities, what is scary is creativity and morality. This is what put dictators into panic mode. And that's why today in Belarus, we have a number of artists in jail going above even journalists and human rights defenders. And that says it all, because we all together with everyone who is on this call or who listens to that, we as artists, we do not have any political agenda. We only have one weapon, and it's art. And only because we are those X-rays machines of society, that's why all dictators and all systems are scared of us. And in those conditions, we've been trying to say to the world, by all possible means of performing arts, by all possible means of documentary filmmaking, video making, saying that if you do not stop dictator in that geopolitical note, if you do not stop, as you feel, a tiny dictator, as Lukashenko, he was considered, because in Belarus we have 10 million population, and unfortunately, people, as we know, are not a popular commodity. Only oil and gas is a popular one. And for years, Belarus was considered not sexy. When you consider dictator that way and do not pay proper attention on time, then that dictator is welcoming much bigger dictator and giving his country for launches of more than 1,000 rockets from Belarusian territory against Ukraine. That geopolitical note must be resolved only as one. That's why the most recent show, Dogs of Europe, talks about exactly that. This is based on the novel of Belarusian writer, and it talks about how Russia built up a new Reich. He wrote that piece in 2018 in Belarus, and unfortunately, it's exactly happening already now when we observe how Russia is building new Reich, how Europe and the whole West became gray zone that lost ability to read books. As a result of it, lost political thinking. That's why that artistic message has to be heard all over the world. Otherwise, neither Belarusian political prisoners, and there are thousands of them who continue to be tortured and jailed, neither thousands of raped, killed Ukrainians will not save your democracy, because it's not about us anymore. It's about you. And only if we stand up together, then there is a chance to change it.
Natalia, you have been a hero of mine since I met you, which is now a long time ago. And that is sort of comes from two different places. One, the theater you make is so powerful and so undeniable. It has such combination of intellectual and visceral force that the quality of the artistic work of the Belarus Free Theatre is second to none. But you have also personally turned yourself into one of the very few theater artists in the world who is a leading spokesman for the liberation of her country. You and the Belarus Free Theatre are the people carrying the message out most successfully to the world that something is happening in Belarus that, as you say, has led to this latest disaster. And I just, there's not a question in there. There's just tremendous admiration and gratitude for what you do.
Thank you.
Of course. And what it leads me to acknowledge right here is, in a way, I'm incredibly glad we're doing this Zoom. I'm incredibly grateful to Frank for organizing it, for all the theater artists who have participated in it. But in a way, it's also an expression of helplessness. There is so little that we feel we can effectively do right now to help the people and the theater artists and the artists of Ukraine. We send our solidarity. We can't imagine what you are suffering. I think Natalia can imagine it better than the rest of us. But what you are undergoing right now with this unjustified and cruel and war is horrifying to the conscience of the world. And I think the biggest thing we want to do is not claim that we understand what's going on for you or that we understand the way out of it, but that we feel it, we care about you, we are thinking about you, and we believe that our art form, the art form that Ukrainian theater artists as well as American theater artists and Belarusian theater artists make, has the power to make things better. With that sort of statement of humility, I'd love to turn the mic over to my friend and colleague, Tony Kushner, who has made some art that has changed the world and is always very aware of the limitations of that art as well. So Tony, maybe you could introduce yourself just to start and we'll go from there.
Oh, I'm Tony Kushner. I'm a playwright and a screenwriter. Natalia, I'm incredibly moved, as I have been in the past, by your words and the way that you view the world. I think that one thing that you just said that's of great importance for us all to think about right now is that although the horror that we're witnessing in Ukraine and the suffering that the world has basically ignored in Belarus for so many years are linked, and the future of the world is linked to both our willed blindness about the sufferings of the Belarusian people under this dictatorship and our decision now to try and start to pay attention in a new way to Putin's monstrous criminal war against the people of Ukraine. You know, thinking back over the last, I'm 65 years old now, so I was in my early 30s when Glasnost and Perestroika began. They seemed in many ways to be almost miraculous in the changes that they were effecting, that the Russian people were affecting in their own sphere. And as one by one, states that had been formerly absorbed by the Soviet Union broke free of that system. It seemed like there was great cause for rejoicing. But now we know, looking back, that terrible mistakes were made all along the way. And Lukashenko is a good example of it. I mean, dictators who really needed to be recognized as immediate threats to their own people, but potential threats to the stability and sanity of the entire planet, were sort of, if not embraced, then indulged or tolerated. The greatest of these, of course, is Putin. The enormous danger this man presents to the survival of the planet at this point, looking back, is something that we all could have seen. Some of us, like you, saw. Some of us saw, but and tried to speak about it, maybe didn't speak about it powerfully enough. One way or another, the human race has collaborated in leading us to what feels like, you know, the sort of a pinnacle moment, a peak moment of terribleness and of danger for the world. You know, in moments like these, history has a sort of cruel way of selecting this or that people to be the canaries in the coal mine, or the leaders in the fight against evil. As I think the people of Ukraine have now been enlisted to be. And you know, Oscar's right. There's a certain degree of hopelessness. This monster in Russia has announced his intention to, if he feels it necessary, you know, basically end all life on the planet by beginning a nuclear war. And he's paralyzed the will of the rest of the world by having made this threat. We don't know yet how to navigate our way around it. So we stand by. We need to send money. We need to send human aid and whatever military aid we can send, whatever kind of material support we can give to the people of Ukraine. Countries need to open their borders to allow refugees from Ukraine in, and then take care of them once they've arrived. But we're waiting to see what the path forward is, and the Ukrainian people are the ones who are showing us, if not what the actual path is, that if we stay awake and we stay aware, there is hope. There is the possibility that there will be an end to the night, that we'll actually wake up to a new and better world. We mustn't become paralyzed by despair. We mustn't lose the name of action, as Shakespeare says. And I think that it's enormously important to look at the world the way that you have just presented to it, and the way that your theater has been presenting it to the world all along. Everything is interconnected, and artists have a role to play in continuing to talk about the interconnection of the past and the present and the future, and of all the people of the earth. So I want to thank you for what you said and for the work that you've done.
You know, I can say, and I actually say to all four of you, the work you've done has been incredibly inspiring. And Brecht, you know, said that hope is infectious. And it's one of the things that I felt in working with and watching and applauding all of your work. Natalia, I'm so aware of the decade plus where you continued to put on performances, secret performances, dangerous, risky performances in Belarus, even while you were in exile. the company continued to work. And what we're seeing now in the Ukraine, in this astonishing 6 weeks in which an actor and a comedian has stepped up to the head of his country and is showing by example that simply refusing to give up, maintaining hope, makes things possible that don't seem possible otherwise. And we don't intellectually know how we can end this. We don't have the game plan. But what we are watching is a member of our profession modeling the idea that you continue to hope, you continue to resist evil, and you believe that that will make things better. Even if not for you, it will make things better in the long run.
Oscar, when you and I were talking about this, we were talking about various poems and things that that the situation has called to mind in the last few months. I mean, it's hard to talk about the power of art in the face of tanks and cannons and armies marching across borders and so on. Brecht is certainly a poet that I always think about at times like this. I think about Anna Akhmatova. I think about Adrian Rich, Audre Lorde, and the great Polish poet Czesław Miłosz, who is somebody who certainly endured, survived terrible times. I found this poem by him. I don't know if this is the time to read poems or what. So if it's not, I won't.
We've got about 3 minutes before.
Oh my gosh!
Final thing.
Well, so, I don't want to take it all up with it.
If it's a 3-minute poem, I think you should go ahead and read it.
I didn't time it. It's not very long.
Go for it.
All right. Unless but there are other
people. Go. That's the way not to go.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know that okay. So Miłosz writes, hope is with you when you believe the earth is not a dream, but living flesh, that sight, touch, and hearing do not lie, that all things you have ever seen here are like a garden looked at from a gate. You cannot enter, but you're sure it's there. Could we but look more clearly and wisely, we might discover somewhere in the garden a strange new flower and an unnamed star. Some people say we should not trust our eyes, that there is nothing, just a seeming. These are ones who have no hope. They think that the moment we turn away, the world behind our backs ceases to exist, as if snatched up by the hands of thieves. So I don't know. I mean, there's something about the way in which the villains of our world right now are so determined to tell us that reality is what they define it to be. The sensuality and the materiality of Miłosz's vision is very moving to me.
I just wanted to give you probably the most connected and connected to the events now, and do it very quickly. In this show that I mentioned to you, Dogs of Europe, that we performed at the Barbican 3 weeks ago, we have Belarusian actors who've been through jail in the show, everyone, and managing directors. We have Ukrainian actors and musicians. And we have a Russian composer who is based in Germany, because he been always fighting for LGBT rights, what is not possible in Russia. And he works in Germany. So we started to work 3 years ago, again, connecting all those dots that we must stand up as a joint front. When the war started, wife of our actor was living under bombing from Kiev while he continued to rehearse. Family of our Ukrainian musicians been killed in Kharkiv. Our Russian composer was fighting for his friend in Belarusian jail. At some point, I entered the room and said, guys, there is a major question to ask. Should we cancel the show? Because it's no time for the show now. All of them in one voice said, while waiting for wives to come under bombing from Kiev to Poland, while never meeting their families again because they are killed in Ukraine, they said, we will, because this is the only thing for us to keep it going. It's our expression and culture, because the main aim of those dictators is to destroy us completely, to wipe us off this world. That's why we did it, and we will continue to do that. This is exactly what needs to give it hope for everyone in America, where it feels very far from reality, but it is reality that could come and hit us very strongly. And Tony, you know, you were with us 11 years, 12 years ago at the protest in New York, when our people have been in jail in Belarus. They continue to be there, but we're here and we're standing up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so proud to call all of you colleagues and comrades and friends. I'm so grateful for the work that all of you do. And I'm going to close off our segment here with a contribution from another artist who's close to us, Shana Taub, who has created a musical called Softs, which is about the passage of the 19th Amendment to give women the right to vote. And this is about 4 minutes of a musical piece. Although it's about women getting the right to vote, I think it's also an anthem for those who are fighting for change everywhere. If I can make this work technically, we'll be lucky. But thank all of you, Natalia, Tony, Erik, Jessica.
Thank you, Oskar.
Thank you. We stand in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oskar, are you playing it from your computer? Is it from our?
I am. Is it not? It's
Oh,
not
great,
coming?
great. Not yet.
Let me start over. Is it okay if I play it from my computer? That's what I
Sure.
was told.
If you're a host, yes, co-host.
Okay. Is it playing now?
Not yet.
Well, something's wrong then, I'm afraid.
What happens if you try to share your screen and play it?
Little green thing at the bottom.
Just going middle in the middle. Mhm.
Guys, this was such a good idea that I'm afraid is not going to work.
When you click share screen, it doesn't do anything.
Let me try.
There's share content. There's a little green box. with an
How's
arrow.
this? Nothing's happening.
Well, we can add it to the segment of the site when we
All
put
right.
it. Put it
So we will stop this and thank all of you very much for appearing here. And thank you, Frank, for everything you've done to organize this. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you, Frank.
Oskar. Thank you, Tony, Natalia, and Jessica and Erik. And this was very important. I'm glad we heard the poem from Miloš and Natalia to hear from you. And it's a very important and it's a great contribution. Oskar, thank you for putting this together. It means the world to us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Oskar. Thank you.